Right, so welcome everyone. We are just letting everybody in the room right now. We'll give it another minute or so, and we'll get started. So please make sure that you can see us clearly, you can hear me clearly, and uh, that you answer a quick question in a poll, just so we can get to know a little bit more about you and where are you coming from and how much of the studies have you done. You'll see this quick poll that's going to pop up on your screen, and we'll do a few polls today as we do some exercises so that we can get some feedback from you. So please sit tight, another 60 seconds or so, and we'll get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is 12 o'clock noon Eastern time, Montreal and Toronto time, New York time. So that means that it is time for us to start. Thanks so much for coming here on time. So our objective for today is going to be to share with you two things. Firstly, we're going to talk about some very practical strategies that are going to help you get an amazing GMAT score. And of course, as you know, the GMAT is a requirement to the majority of MBA programs, and it's not a pass and fail exam. It's an exam where you need to demonstrate a certain level of achievement in order to be a competitive candidate. And generally speaking, the higher your GMAT score, the more competitive your profile is going to look like for the business schools. So that's what we're going to start with. Now, towards the end of our seminar, it's going to be a very short seminar, just an hour today. So towards the end of our seminar, we are going to be talking about the application process, about different programs that are available to you so that you actually know how to put that good GMAT score to a very good use. And I'll be joined here by Tatiana DeVoe from the McGill Desertel Faculty of Management. So let's actually begin. Now, what I'd like to do is perhaps to just throw you into a deep end right away and show you a real GMAT question so that you can see what is it you're getting yourself into. Now, all throughout this, I'm going to launch a few quick polls just so I can get some feedback from you. But if you have any questions, please use the chat box and just type your questions in the chat box. There's also a Q&A box. So if you have a question where you say, well, I just want to make sure that sometime today we answer this question, maybe it's a little more personal in nature, then please throw it in the Q&A box. And we will stay, Tatiana and I, we will stay as long as it's necessary to answer all of your questions. So let me get that poll out of the way right now. And here's the question. The question says, the ratio of pigs to chickens on a certain farm is 13 to 28. And when 15 pigs were added to the farm, the ratio of pigs to chickens became 4 to 7. What was the original total number of pigs and chickens on this farm? Here are the answer choices. Now, how can we approach this question? Well, there are different ways to do this, but what I'd like to do is I would like to give you exactly 60 seconds to try to figure out what is the answer. So you have 60 seconds, and if you can find this answer within 60 seconds, then please choose that answer in a quick poll, and then we'll actually talk about this question. I'll actually show you how you can do it in 60 seconds. So here you go. You have 60 seconds to deal with this question. All right, 60 seconds are up. Let me end the poll and let me share the results with you. Now, let me tell you that today in the class is a very large class. Normally, when we teach classes that like full programs, full training, we would normally have about 10 to 15 people so we can fully interact. Today, we have a lot more people, but among everybody here, I can see that only about 15% of people actually voted, actually chose the answer. And as you could see, most people vote for C, a few people for E and B, but most people didn't actually choose the answer. So it looks like a hard question, right? And normally when we see a hard challenge, what do we need to do? What do we think we need to do is we think that we need to work hard to get that challenge completed. So here's how we can actually work hard to do this question. We can say, all right, so we have a ratio of pigs to chickens, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we have 13 chickens or 13 pigs and 28 chickens. We could also have something like 130 pigs and 280 chickens, right? It's just a ratio. The ratio has to stay, but the actual number doesn't need to be 13 and 28. It could also be something like 26 and 56, for example, right? So what we can say is that we have 13 times n pigs and 28 times n chickens. So that's where we begin. Then we add 15 pigs. We have 13n plus 15. Then we have a new ratio. The new ratio has to be 4/7. Then we can solve for n. And after we solve for n, we figure out that n is equal to 5. We find out the number of pigs, the number of chickens, and we can calculate the total number of pigs and chickens. That was the question was all about, and the answer has to be 205. So a classical textbook way of doing these questions. That's what we learn in school, right? You may remember. So I gave you only 60 seconds, and you might think, wow, this is not fair. How can you do this to us? Well, it is because the work hard way is not the only way of dealing this question. You may have heard of what we call the work smart way. I will like to call it the mastery way. And the mastery way just means that you really know what you're doing on this test. That goes far beyond what we learned in high school, even though the question still looks like a high school question. So here's what we can do. We can say, well, I had 13 pigs and 28 chickens. So for every 13 pigs, I have 28 chickens. If I add 13 more pigs, I'm going to have to add 28 more chickens. So what this means simply is the number of pigs must be divisible by 13, and the number of chickens must be divisible by 28. And if I add these two numbers together, then all this tells me is that the number of pigs and chickens together must be divisible by 41. So let me ask you a question. How many answer choices are divisible by 41? Only one. These numbers are very close to each other, so very obviously only one of them is a multiple of 41. That happens to be number 205, simply because 40 times 5 is 200, and 1 times 5 is 205. And we can do this question in 30 seconds, literally, without breaking the sweat. And that's what you're going to have to do if you want to get a score of 700. And that actually brings us to a very important point, and that is what really separates people who get scores of 500 from people who get scores of 700. And it's really that people who get the scores of 500 are people who are really comfortable with high school math and high school English grammar and some of the English theory. So some of the people are saying, well, let me go and kind of review everything I learned in school because that's what I need for the test. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. And then you get a score of 500. Anything above 500, we need something different. So what is it that we need to get a score above average, above 500? Well, if we ask people who make the test, don't take my word for it. Let's ask people who actually create the test, the GMAT. Here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, look, this is a test to get into a business school, and people come from all kinds of different backgrounds. So we cannot discriminate. We cannot give an advantage to somebody who is strong in math or somebody who is, let's say, a native speaker. So we're not going to test how well you know math, how well you know English, or how well you know business. I mean, you're trying to get into a business school, you're going to learn everything about business in a business school. So we're not going to ask you anything about business. Instead, we want to understand, do you have what it takes to figure out an answer to a question within a limited time by using your higher order reasoning skills? So higher order reasoning skills, it just simply means you look at the question and you try to use your logic You try to look for some patterns. You try to identify what's the right strategy to use, and you get to the answer without doing too much work, because that's what a good management skills are all about. And that's what you're going to need. If you want to succeed in the business school, it's not about working hard. Well, it is to a degree, but it is about really working smart. Now, you do need to have some basic operating knowledge. That's why I said to get to 500, you do need to know some basic geometry, basic algebra, some basic English. But that's just going to get you to 500. Anything beyond that, you really need to learn these reasoning skills, and that's how you're going to get to a very high score. Now, this is for many people, this is going to be a little bit of a mind shift, because the way that we studied for almost every other test in the past is we just needed to learn the basics. We needed to learn the foundations. In fact, if you really think about this, every other test, so almost every other test that we've ever done in our life, throughout high school, middle school, college, university, was the test of memory. You have a good memory, you get a good mark. You have a bad memory, you don't remember what was in the book, you have a bad mark. But the GMAT is not like that. It's not about memorizing things. And that is why our mantra that we really used to doing this, and we really maybe perhaps learned, I certainly heard this a lot from my teachers. They were telling me that knowledge is power. Right? If I learn this piece of history from the Middle Ages, I'm going to be powerful when I grow up. Like, really? You know, how much of it do I remember now, and how much of it do I actually use right now? So that is why we're going to study differently. And that is why I just want to perhaps break some old habits that some people have and perhaps introduce some new habits. And I'll use an example. I'll actually use a few analogies because I really want this to sink in so that it's really helpful for you. We have a very short time together, so I'm trying to make as big of an impact. I obviously cannot teach you everything about the GMAT in 45 minutes. If you want to learn everything about the GMAT, you can come and take our 6-week program. But at least I want to give you a framework of how you're going to do this. So I'm going to use an analogy of a sport. The GMAT is a mental sport. You can talk to anyone who scored above 700. They're going to tell you exactly the same thing. If you want to succeed in a sport, yeah, you can read a book about how to play this sport. But unless you jump into a pool and unless you actually do this, unless you practice a lot, get some feedback, get some coaching, learn the strategies, you're probably not going to be successful. And that's why most people give up at most of the sports. Most people don't succeed. So that's what we're going to do. So the reason why I'm giving you this analogy, if there was anything in life, any sort of a sport that you ever succeeded, look at how you did it. Look at what kind of people supported you. Look at what kind of steps did you take to get there. Who was along the way, who gave you this coaching, who was supporting you. And that's how you're going to get to a good score in the GMAT, not by reading a book. Now, when you look at the structure of the test, and some of you mentioned that you are just starting. So I want to give you something that is going to be valuable, because that's something that also was shared with us by the GMAT. So we go at test prep organizations, we actually go to a special conference with the GMAT that's invitation only. It's about once a year. They invite very, very few test prep organizations that they know have been around for a while, do a good job preparing people for the GMAT exam. And here's what they shared with us. They said, look, make sure every time you talk to somebody about the GMAT who is just beginning to study, just make sure you tell them that the GMAT is not about math and English, because that's what most people think. It is about these things, analytical and reasoning. So everything on the GMAT is about demonstrating how well you can analyze information, how well you can reason through information, and how well you can make decisions under pressure within limited time. I do a lot of consultations, and I'm happy to do a one-on-one consultation with you. If you want to go on our website at mcmaster.com, there's a button to book a one-on-one consultation. And the most common complaint I hear about the GMAT, probably about 80% of people tell this to me. They say, I know what I'm doing. This is not a problem. I only have one problem on the GMAT. My one and only problem is timing. It takes me 10 minutes to do a question. I need to do it in 60 seconds or 2 minutes. How can I do this? And the response is, well, you cannot really do what you're doing in 10 minutes in 2 minutes. You just have to do something different. You have to know how to use different strategies and how to actually demonstrate these skills. That's what is really important. Now, when you look at the structure of the test, you probably also noticed, if you've done a little bit of research, is that quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning are the only two sections that contribute towards the 200 to 800 score. So you generally want to spend a little more time preparing for these sections, because the skills you learn will also help you in the first two sections as well. Now, in these two sections, there's actually different types of questions. The type of a question you've seen so far is called problem solving. You see a problem and you kind of need to solve it. And one of the things that when you come to our 6-week program, one of the very first things that we tell you in our very first quantitative class is that problem solving is not about solving a problem. It is about using your problem solving skills to find the right answer in under 2 minutes. And finding the right answer is different from solving a problem. Very often, to find the right answer, I don't need to solve a problem. I just need to find the answer. And by the way, the answer is right in front of me. That's what we did with this question with pigs and chickens. We knew that the number must be divisible by 41. Well, I have 5 answer choices. How many of them are divisible by 41? That's all I need. I don't need to actually solve it to find the number. I just need to find it. So that's the first type of a question. The second type of a question is called data sufficiency. This is very unique to the GMAT. This is where you're given a problem and you don't even need to solve it. You don't even need to find the right answer. All you need is to figure out if the information in front of you is enough to solve a problem. Well, guess what? That should be amazing, right? I don't need to solve a problem. This is a very management type of a skill. This is kind of like thinking like a CEO of a company. Right? I have a problem. Do I have enough resources to solve the problem? That's it. Let other people do this. So awesome question. Most people are afraid of it because they don't know how to approach it. They try to solve a problem in order to figure out if it's possible. A little bit of a backwards thinking, and that's why it takes so long. Now, there's also the verbal reasoning section, like we mentioned. It takes half of you. It's half of your 200 to 800 score, and there's 3 types of questions: sentence correction, critical reasoning, and reading comprehension. So if you want to dig a little bit deeper, I know we only have 45 minutes today, but if you want to dig deeper, then come and join us. We do offer some free refresher classes, and the quantitative reason section is going to be covered in the math refresher class, the verbal reasoning section, of course, in the verbal refresher class, and you can sign up for those at admitmaster.com. Now, these 2 sections are computer adaptive. I don't want to get too deep into this, but just something that's very, very important for you to understand is that when you come for the test, the questions you're going to see are not predefined. They're going to change based on how you do. If you're doing well, you're going to see a lot more hard questions. If you're doing poorly, you're going to see a lot more easy questions. Now, to get a high score, you need to see a lot of hard questions. And what this means is that as you're going through the test, you need to be prepared that the questions are going to keep getting harder and harder. And at some point, the questions are going to get so hard, you're going to start making mistakes. And that is why knowing the strategies to get to the right answer quickly are going to be really, really important. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so how does a verbal question look like? We've done a quant question so far. So let me show you a verbal reasoning question. Here's the question. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read it and try to make sense of it. All right. Well, did you read it at least once? See, the question is a little confusing, right? And it's really about, it's a philosophy passage. It's about ethics. It's about somebody who actually studies ethics. And the question is asking you to do something with this passage. So let me show you the answer choices. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds to try to see what might be the right answer. And again, don't worry about getting this wrong. We're here to learn. And part of learning is to get things wrong and make mistakes. This is a very safe way of making mistakes. So let me do that. Let me share the answer choices with you and just do your best to pick the answer that you think might be correct. I'll give you another 30 seconds. All right. So as you could see, the question is quite confusing. Again, very, very few people answered this question, and the answers are all over the place. So how could the GMAT possibly give us something like this? This looks pretty challenging. And by the way, this is a hard question. So how can I expect you to do this question in 30 seconds? Well, again, if we try to focus on what this person is trying to say, we're going to take an enormous amount of time to try to absorb it all and just try to see what does it mean, especially virtues. Is this the desire? You know, do I need to dust off my philosophy books? Well, let's focus on answering the question. That's what's really important. The question asks, the statement in boldface plays which of the following roles? So we have a statement in boldface right in the middle of the passage. You know, it's in bold, right? So that's what it's called, the boldface questions. And we need to understand the role of that statement among all of the other statements in the passage. So essentially, in order for us to do this, we need to understand how the statements in the passage relate to each other. So even though I'm trying to get into a business school, I don't really need to know anything about ethics. You know, hopefully I want to be ethical when I'm applying to a business school, right? But I don't need to be an expert in ethics. I don't need to be like a philosopher. I just need to know how do I identify the right structure of the passage. That's what we're going to teach you in our class if you decide to join us. So there are different types of structures, but the structure usually gets signaled by certain connectors. But by how the elements of the passage, how the different statements connect with each other. And here it's actually pretty straightforward, believe it or not. The passage is hard, but the structure is actually very easy. And we just need to look at the keywords that connect the statements together. Now we begin by saying it would be a mistake to say something. So that just means that somebody made a mistake and the author believes that these people are wrong. Now we call this the claim of an argument. Now, if the author is making a claim or essentially presenting an opinion that these people are wrong. Now, the way that the arguments work, if you are not familiar with this basic structure of an argument, is you have an opinion, you have a claim, and you also need to support that claim by providing some pieces of evidence. So what's going to follow is actually evidence. So that part in bold is actually the evidence that supports our claim. We use that to explain why we believe these people are wrong. And there are different ways to use evidence. I can give an example or counterexample or some sort of another explanation. But here, it's important, again, to look at the keyword. We begin by keyword for although it is true that. So these people are wrong. And even though this is true, nevertheless, these people are wrong. That's the structure of an argument. And notice how I didn't say anything about ethics. So the question was about that part in the middle, the part in bold. We just realized it's an evidence that supports the claim. And we also realized that the author actually thinks it's true, right? He says this part is true, but these people are wrong anyway. So let's go back to the answer choices. The most common answer choice is usually C. So C says it is a faulty claim. Well, what's a faulty claim? Now remember, the question was about the part in bold. The author said, for although this is true, so it's not a faulty claim. They also said it's true, so C is out. Let's keep going. Let's go down here in the list, and then we'll come back up. D says it is according to the argument the commonly held opinion that is nevertheless false. All right, so that's out as well. They also said it's true. E, it reports an observation that the argument claims is false. Okay, I can stop right here. The author didn't claim it's false. He actually said it's true. So E is also wrong. So now I'm down to A and B. Look how efficiently we go through the answer choices. We don't even read all of them. We just find what's important to either keep it or eliminate it. So now we're down to 2 answer choices. And honestly, only one of them could still work, right? I mean, we have 2 answer choices. and it's a multiple choice exam. So it's either A or B. At this point, there's no other option. So I want to be a little bit lazy, and I'm just going to choose the one that's a little easier. It looks like A is a little shorter. A says it is a claim for which the argument attempts to provide justification. So remember, what is a claim? The claim is an opinion. The claim is the main point of an argument. Was the part in the middle, was the bolded part the main point of an argument? No, it wasn't. It was actually the support to the main claim. And that's why A is wrong, B is right. We are done. We don't need to do anything else with this question. We can move forward. Have any questions? Please throw them in the chat box. But I want to talk about something important, and then we'll do one more question. I want to talk about something that I'm sure is on your mind is, how in the world do I prepare for this test? It looks a lot more complicated than I thought. So how do I prepare for it? Well, let me give you the good news first. The good news is that everything you need, every single piece of information that you need to be successful in any area of your life is freely available in a bookstore, in a library, or in the internet. Everything you need, every single piece of strategy is somewhere out there. All you need to do is find it, apply it, use it, get an awesome score. So let me show you something that was shared with us also at this GMAT conference. Let's maybe just put things a little bit in perspective. Every year, about 7 million people, 7 million, go to these seminars just like that, go on the website, read some information about the GMAT, explore what it's going to take to actually get into a business. 7 million people a year worldwide. Of these 7 million people, 2 million people actually either buy a GMAT book or download the GMAT practice test. So they'll spend a little more time and perhaps a little bit of money to actually say, I am serious. I actually want to do this. 2 million people. Of these 2 million people, how many people do you think will actually do a real test on the GMAT? Only 10%. 200,000 people. So 90% of people are going to take some steps and they're going to say, not for me, too complicated, even though everything we need to succeed is somewhere out there, freely available. And then out of these 200,000 people, only about 12%, 24,000 people will get scores of 700 or more. And these are the scores that you generally want to see if you want to apply to schools such as McGill. Right? And you can get in with a slightly lower score as well. But if you want to be a competitive candidate, especially if you want to get into some very competitive jobs afterwards, like maybe if you want to work in consulting or investment banking or some other very highly competitive or technology firms, well, these firms are going to ask you, what's your GMAT score? Many of them do, because they need a way to filter out the best candidates. So your GMAT score is not just going to be used for your application. So let me ask you a question. Well, how come everything's freely available and yet only 1 in 300 people who even look at this GMAT will get a score of 700? And that's the same everywhere else. See, if you want to become a multi-billionaire or a successful investor or a successful relationship coach or anything else in life, everything's on the internet. The problem is that it's so overwhelming. There's so much advice on the internet. Some of it is good. Most of it is bad. Right? There are lots of GMAT forums, for example, and some of them just, I was recently reading, they've celebrated, they have 1 billion posts. So there's 1,000 million posts that were made on this forum. Well, geez, do I really have time to read through the 1 billion posts, or do I need to understand really what's important? And that's why when you're really trying to think about how you're going to prepare for the GMAT, the one big advice that I can give you is that we can't really do everything by ourselves. Because I was just reading the, just in case you're following the economics, Jerome Powell was testifying in front of a Congress, was it yesterday, when the congressmen in the United States were asking him, oh, didn't you see the inflation coming? He said, well, no, we didn't, right? So all of the information was there. These are the people who are the experts, and yet they still didn't do this. So how can we have anticipated what's going on. How can we anticipate what's coming on the GMAT if we haven't been exposed to this? So that's why it's really important that you surround yourself with people who are experts, because unlike the economy, unlike these crazy things that are going on around us, the GMAT is pretty predictable. We know exactly what's going to happen on the GMAT because it is a standardized test. The kind of questions, the kind of patterns of the test, the kind of strategies are all known to humans, because lots of humans did the test before, and lots of humans did really well, and the test doesn't really change that much. It has to stay consistent so that if you're applying to a business school now with the score that you did yesterday, or somebody's applying with the GMAT score with the test that they did 5 years ago, the school needs to be able to compare you. That's why the test is very consistent. And that's why when you are preparing for the test, really, I would like to encourage you to think very hard about how you're going to study and who's going to be your coach, and are you going to have a coach? And your coach could be, a spreadsheet, or your coach could be a real human. And usually the results you're going to get differ a little bit. So how can you actually develop that training plan to get to your score? Well, there are actually really 3 ways to do this. The way number 1 is you can get a study plan and follow it all by yourself. There's not going to be anybody to keep you accountable. There's not anybody who can answer your questions. But as long as you are very highly self-motivated, and as long as you get the right resource and the right plan in front of you that you can follow, that is what you need to succeed. That's the first method of studying. The second method is you can work with a private coach. So a private coach will actually hold you accountable, will meet with you maybe once a week, will review your progress, will give you feedback, will answer your questions, will teach you strategies. So that's kind of another extreme, right? And some people prefer to study completely on their own. Obviously, it's a lot also cheaper, a lot more affordable to study on your own. Usually takes a lot longer. Working with a coach usually is the fastest, gets the result much better, much quicker, gets the better results, but it could be a lot more expensive. So what a lot of people do is they will instead choose to come to a group class for the GMAT. And that is why when you go to an MBA program, you're also going to be in a group class and going to be a professor who's teaching you, and you also have a chance to work in groups and teams. And that's how you can learn a lot of things without spending millions of dollars, right, to learn what would normally would be if a professor worked with you one-on-one. So that's what you can decide. But the most important takeaway from this is you need to have a study plan. If you are studying for the GMAT and you don't know what are you going to do next, what are you going to do first, what are you going to do second, what are you going to do third, you most likely going to end up in the 90% of people who just at some point just realize, not for me. Let me give you an example. Here's one of our students. She came to us about a year ago, well, just when the pandemic started, actually now close to 2 years ago. And she said, well, I've been studying for 4 years. What's going on? I'm not seeing any progress. I'm stuck at about 500. And what we realized is that she just kept doing the same thing. She just did a bunch of questions. Then she looked at the explanations of the questions online. And then she said, okay, well, now I kind of get it. So a week later, I'm going to do a few more questions. That's what a lot of people do. And what she realized is she really needs a structure, and she really needs people around her to support her in this journey. So she joined our class, and actually in 3 months, she got a score of 700. She was ready to give up. Honestly, she just said, Sergey, this is my last hope. I'm like, well, no pressure. And she ended up doing really well. She started her MBA in this September 2021. So the results that you're going to get are really going to depend on how you prepare. I mean, even whether you're going to go for the real test will depend on how you prepare. Just like if I want to learn a new sport, well, I can go and dabble it a little bit. If I want to learn how to run, I'm going to go outside. Maybe I'm going to run a bit. I'm going to get tired. The next day, I'm going to sleep in because I'm too tired. The next day is going to be too cold, so I'm not going to go running. And then a year later, I'm like, wow, I'm not any better. Right? And if I want to actually be a good runner, I'm going to probably go and join a running club, because that way I know I'm going to be in a system. There's going to be some people who are going to coach me, support me, and most importantly, I have the accountability. I got to show up. A lot of our students who come to our live program will say, one of the biggest reasons why I signed up for your program is I need that accountability. I have a class, I got to show up. And eventually they, of course, say, well, wow, the stuff I learned in class, I would have never figured it out on my own. But initially, many of them come for the structure. And that's why about 35% of our students will actually get these scores of 700 or more, right? And normally, if you remember, only about 1 in 300 people get that score. So there's a huge difference about having that culture of accountability and actually learning the strategies that really work. So let me show you one more strategy, and then we'll wrap up, and then I'll let Tatiana share a lot of the admissions tips and strategies with you. So here's another question, another problem-solving question for you. The question says, Aaron will jog from home at X miles an hour. So that's about exercising, right? It's about running. So really nice transition from our exercise example. So Aaron will jog from home at X miles an hour. And then when he's tired, he's going to walk back home by the same route at Y miles an hour. So the question is, how many miles from home can Aaron jog so that he spends a total of T hours jogging and walking? Okay, the question's a little confusing, but I think the concept is easy, right? The person is going at one speed, going back at a different speed. He was away for a total of T hours, and wait till you see the answer choices. Here they are, right? And many people look at the answer choices and say, are you kidding me? Like, I would have loved to at least have some numbers. Maybe he's jogging at like 10 miles an hour, walking back at 5. Maybe there's something I can do, right? So maybe he's gonna be like, like maybe 10 miles. I don't know. If he was away for 2 hours, maybe it's going to be like maybe a little less than 10 miles, something like that. But no, we have variables in the answer choices. So what can we do? And again, the way we approach this question, if you look at the back of the book, and this is the question from the official guide, here's what it's going to say. Well, don't worry. Distance is equal to rate times time. And there's a distance from home. There's a distance back home, obviously 2 different speeds, 2 different times. We don't know how long it took him that way and the back, but we know times together were T. We know it was the same route, so the distance is the same. And if we equate these 2 distances, then we have this equation with 2 speeds and 2 times. Well, we know the speed, so we can factor a few things out. And then after about 5 minutes, most people are like, really? I don't know if we're getting any closer to this. And I sometimes give this question to our students in a live class before the pandemic. And I've been teaching the GMAT for 12 years. So I have lots of experience doing both the online classes and the in-person classes. And a lot of people after 5 minutes, they're like just scratching their head or maybe playing with their phone. That's not a good approach. So what can we do? And by the way, this is a question that we do in our very first quant class. We're going to teach you exactly how to identify these sorts of strategies. So let me show you the strategy. Now, if we understand that we need to multiply speed to time to get to the distance, then that's actually all that we need for this question. That's just something we need to understand conceptually. I multiply speed by time. Now, I'm not going to add speed to time. Right? So if I'm driving from Toronto to Montreal, and I'm driving at 100 kilometers an hour, it takes me 5 hours. I know the distance is 500. It's not 105. It's not 95. I'm not dividing 100 by 5. It's very easy. Everybody knows this. So let's look at the answer choices then. Are there any other answer choices? Are there any answer choices that don't multiply speed by time? I mean, look at B. B is trying to add speed x to time t. It's kind of like saying I'm driving 100 kilometers an hour for 5 hours, so my distance was 105. It makes no sense. And that's why B has to be out. Doesn't really work that way. Are there any other answer choices where we're trying to add speed and time? Well, how about D, x plus y plus t? Can't add speed and time. I mean, if you have an engineering background, it's called dimensional analysis. But if you don't, that's just called common sense. E, y plus t, speed plus time. That doesn't work. So now we're down to 2 answer choices, A and C. Again, 2 answer choices. That's the best place to be because now only one of them has to be right. So I'm going to look at the one that's easy. I'm going to look at A. So A gives me x divided by y times t. So miles an hour divided by miles an hour times hours. Miles an hour cancel out. I have hours. So the answer in A is going to be in hours. Did the question ask me for hours? No, it didn't. It asked me how many miles. That's why A is out. C has to be the correct answer. Now notice how much math did I do. So with this amount of math that I did, what's the chance that somehow along the way, I'm going to make some sort of a stupid mathematical mistake? Not very high. So here's what I'm doing. I'm getting this question faster. I'm finding the right answer. I'm reducing the amount of math that I'm doing. And this is a 700 level question. And I get this done in like literally 30 seconds because I know what's the right strategy and how to can actually apply this strategy to this question. So if you want to learn how to do this, there are a few ways to do this. Now, firstly, if you are the kind of person who said, look, I need accountability, I need to be around people who are doing this, and I need real experts who care about my success, then come and join us. We offer live classes. So the live class, the way it works is you come to a class twice a week or once a week. Every class is 4 hours long. So today's class is 45 minutes, 4 hours long. And we're going to teach you everything you need to know about the GMAT over 6 or 12 weeks. The classes are either on evenings or on weekends. So if you are in different time zones, not in the Eastern time zone, then you can pick the one that works for you. Either of these would work. If you are in, let's say, in the Eastern zone or in North America, if you're somewhere else, you can pick one or the other, but one of them should work. And then if you decide to join us by tomorrow, if you can go on this website, admitmaster.com/offer, then we can give you $200 off our course, and we're going to give you a free mini course in Math and Verbal Foundation, so you can actually get prepared for the class. Remember, you need to have some basic knowledge. We're going to get you all of this basic knowledge for free. You don't have to go and take another course and spend another hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to take some other high school course, right? Everything's going to be included here. Now, some people ask, okay, so if I take this course 6 weeks, am I going to be ready by the end of 6 weeks? And the answer is, it depends. Let me give you an example. So here's Daria. She came to our class also about a year ago, and she scored only 380. So terrible score by all standards. And she just said, look, I'm very motivated. I need to get a high score. I need to finish before the deadline. She was applying to one of the top schools in the world for a Master's of Finance program that's generally a little bit more competitive than MBA in terms of the GMAT score. And she just said, look, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to work on this. And even though she didn't have a math background, she was able to do really well in 3 months. So a month and a half of a course, a month and a half of self-practice afterwards. We continued supporting her. And the most important thing, as you could see, she mentioned she learned how to think outside the box. She learned how to manage her time and stress. And ultimately, she learned to think like a CEO. That's what we teach in a class. And she's now already in her program. She's doing exceptionally well. She recommended a lot of her friends already to our course. So it's about 3 months. It's pretty typical now. Daria, she could dedicate a lot of time studying, close to about 25, 30 hours a week. If you can dedicate less time and you need a big score improvement, it might take you a little bit longer. Here's another example. Brian, he was actually studying completely full time. He said, I have about 40 hours a week because once I finish this course, I am starting a new job, so I don't have any more time to study. And he was literally able to get a score of 760 as soon as the course was over. But this is not very common. Typically, most people, when they take our live class, will take about 3 to 4 months, including the first 6 weeks in a class. And by the way, remember, we're going to give you this foundational course before that. So that's why if you're thinking about our live class, don't wait until the very last minute, because first of all, the discount is going to be gone. And secondly, you're not going to have time to prepare. So try to think a little bit ahead. The best time now is to sign up for a class either at the end of January or in February. Now, if you're the kind of person who says, look, I'm afraid of commitment, so I'd rather study completely mostly on my own. There are other options as well. You can either work with a coach and get access to all class recordings, or you can study completely on your own. It's a super affordable option. Even if you compare it with some of the other options available on the internet, it's probably going to be even more affordable than sometimes buying some of the books. And it gives you really everything that we teach, all the strategies, and it gives you a plan, but you need to follow it. And that's what we call the GMAT Express Self-Prep Program. So if you go on admitmaster.com/offer, you are going to find these 3 options. It's either a live class with a lot of coaching and a small group of people, or you can go through all of our classes, essentially class recordings on your own, but still work with a coach. Or you can just say, just give me everything I need. I don't need any support. I just need the right strategies, and I'm going to go through it. I'm super motivated. I want to be among the 1 in 300 people. I don't want to be in that 90% who don't even do the test. So that's really important. And that's why when you invest in the program, you already are committed. And that's very, very important. And that's why we make this program very, very affordable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's 12:44. So I'm going to give you back to Tatiana in just a moment, but just one thing about the next steps. If you are interested in our live classes, then come and join us. Now, right now, our classes are virtual. At some point, they're going to become in person, but don't worry. The virtual class works exceptionally well, and you can take it from home. They're evening and weekend classes. They're free refresher classes. They're twice a month. The next one is in approximately a week. It's actually next Tuesday. You can also take a practice test. If you don't know what your starting level is, just go to mcgill.trygmat.com, and you can find all of that at admitmaster.com/offer. Now, some of you might say, okay, this is really nice. And I spoke with somebody actually just a couple of days ago. I spoke with her a year ago. And she said, wow, I should have really done this a year ago. I should have really done because my deadline's in 6 weeks. I said, that's not going to happen. You're working full time. In 6 weeks, you're not going to get a score of 700. So the best time was to start a year ago. But guess what? If you're not starting now, you're not even going to start your MBA program the next year. So if you are the person who is saying, yes, this is important, I am committed, let me know. We can chat. And there's just a quick poll as we are transitioning that you can answer this quick poll, and then we're going to go from there. So Tatiana, if you could please share your screen. I'm going to unshare my screen. And I know there's some questions in the Q&A box. We will make sure that we address all of these questions towards the end. So please don't go away. Absolutely, I'm going to answer these questions. But for now, let me introduce Tatiana, who's going to share with you some information about what programs are available and how you can actually apply for them.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Sergey, are you able to see my screen clearly? Wonderful. Okay, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Tatiana DeVoe, and I'm a recruitment administrator at the Digital Faculty of Management at McGill University. Thank you once again for joining us today. I will also just turn my camera off, and I will start the presentation. I will be here after, as Sergey mentioned earlier, to answer any questions you may have about what I'm presenting. And I know that Sergey will be here as well until the last questions are answered. So just to give you a basis a little bit about our 4 programs today. I will be presenting about the Master of Management in Analytics, Finance, and Retailing, as well as our MBA at McGill. So you can see that McGill is home to over 40,000 students from over 160 countries. There are also over 260,000 McGill alumni around the world. We're really pleased to consistently rank among the top schools in the world and be reputed for excellence in teaching and research. As you can see, our MMA has been ranked #1 in Canada, top 5 in North America, and top 9% globally by QS Masters in Business Analytics ratings in 2022. Our MMF has equally impressive rankings, and #1 in North America in 2021, #2 in Canada, and 11% globally. Of course, these are 2 different ranking systems that are being used. And you'll note that our MMR program for our Master of Management programs is not being ranked because it is our newest edition, and our very first cohort began in the fall of 2021. So I will give you a brief overview of our 3 Master of Management programs. As I mentioned, the MMA, or Analytics, MMF for Finance, and MMR or Retailing. So if you have any questions, please stick around until the end, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. For students who apply to our MM programs, they do come from a variety of different backgrounds. I really do encourage you to register for an upcoming information session or visit our website for additional information on programs that are most of interest to you, as this is a very brief introduction, and there's so much more to these programs than I can share with you in this short time frame. Interesting to note is that each program does have unique experiential learning modules that will complement the in-class learning and allow students to apply what they've learned in the classroom in real-world and business settings. The application requirements, though similar, differ slightly for each program, and I do recommend that you verify the requirements for the programs that you're interested in well in advance of starting your applications. Speak to a representative and attend information sessions so that you are not left rushing to complete the requirements, for example, like writing the GMAT. So let's start with the MMA. This program is best suited to students who have graduated in a related discipline, who have technical skills, and who are interested in studying analytics from a business or management perspective. This program will cater to individuals with an undergraduate degree in any discipline who want to be part of the digital and technological wave and who have a strong interest in the emerging field of big data, analytics, and AI from a strategic perspective. The Master of Management in Analytics is an intensive, full-time, one-year pre-experience program with a strong emphasis on experiential learning. The MMA curriculum will strike a balance between advanced statistics, technology, and business strategy to give students a really broad range of practical skills. The MMA is offered as a 12-month program and offers also a 1.5-year option that will include an internship for students interested in gaining additional professional experience prior to graduation. The MMA is based on 3 major pillars: the statistics pillar, technology, as well as business strategy. It aims to bridge the gap really between business leaders and technical leaders, and this program was designed to pull the best features from programs like an MBA and peer development programs like an MSc in data science. Technically strong students will get to learn the true business acumen required to succeed in the market, and strategically strong students will get to learn the need-to-know technologies and skills to gain expertise required to be valuable to organizations. So if we take a look at how this program is delivered, the MMA students will be working alongside industry professionals in solving a significant data analytics problem aimed to boost the client's top or bottom lines. So we have a variety of different companies that we work with on a regular basis at McGill, and students are placed within those companies to solve these problems. All students will undertake a technical consulting role by working in teams with real companies and attempting to solve live data-driven problems. They will produce a robust analytic solution over 10 full months and practice using real data and market-leading software and benefit from industry mentorship and faculty coaching, which is truly key. This will provide you with unparalleled training for the job market. Next on our agenda is the MMF, and a McGill Master of Management in Finance degree is another pre-experienced specialized program in finance that can be completed in either 12 or 16 months. So the MMF program will prepare you for a career in finance through a comprehensive curriculum that will integrate advanced financial concepts and quantitative models with real-world business practices. The Integrative Finance Project is a core component of the program, and it provides the opportunity to immediately put into practice the skills and knowledge that students will acquire in the classroom. Students fulfill this requirement in 3 overlapping stages. So upon entry to the program, students will join Desautels Capital Management, or DCM, as analysts. DCM is a licensed and regulated asset management firm with an independent board of directors and external investors. As analysts, you'll be responsible for a particular sector, identifying investment opportunities and pitching them to colleagues. In addition, you'll also be responsible for dealing with regulatory issues, compliance, trading and execution, back office settlement, preparation and filing of financial statements, as well as communication with clients. Another component is the professional seminar series, and seminars will be held regularly to expose students to current issues and practices in financial markets. The seminars will be given by professionals from various industries like hedge funds, pension funds, tax and legal accountants, and the like, and will provide unique networking opportunities. For the financial project, students will work on a finance topic of their choice under the supervision of a faculty member. Throughout the project, students will have the opportunity to think independently and creatively about an important financial topic and apply your quantitative skills, ultimately showcase the marketable skill sets in their area of interest. You can see that Desautels MMF students will benefit from experiential learning through a multitude of initiatives. So next is our latest addition to the MM programs. It is the Master of Management in Retailing, and our first cohort did begin in the fall of 2021. The MMR is an intensive full-time 12 or 16-month pre-experience program with a strong emphasis on experiential learning. It will feature a 3-month internship program for those students who would like to participate and who need to participate. Of course, students with extensive retail background can complete the program in 12 months by working on a professor-led research practicum. The MMR consists of 4 modules. So it's the core, the complementary courses, the experiential module, and the sector module. So just to take a look at the sector module, this is really designed to give students an opportunity to dive deeper into specific concentrations. So those concentrations include fintech and financial services, intelligence mobility, food and grocery, entertainment and hospitality, as well as fashion and beauty. And now the experiential module is designed to provide students with the experience of hands-on application of the concepts taught in real-world settings and the opportunity to interact with practitioners in leading retail organizations. The experiential module has MMR students racking up really a lot of amazing retail experiences, and they're achieved not only through our school year retail project, but also through the Global Retail Challenge, an internship program, as I mentioned, the McGill Retail Summit, an international study trip, and Retail Innovation Lab. So the Innovation Lab is really exciting. It's located currently on the ground floor of the Bronfman building, which is one of our management buildings on our McGill campus. And this lab offers an omni-channel retail activities in live and open setting to serve the McGill downtown and downtown community. So it is open to the public. It fosters collaborations between interdisciplinary and interfaculty academics and key players in retail, emerging technologies, as well as startups. Just to note, it is one of Canada's first retail laboratory stores that is open to the public. It's one of the first laboratory retail stores in North America where a university and retailer have partnered, and one of the first frictionless stores in Canada. It's a really interesting project that has been put into place. And if you do visit our website, there's a super interesting video about it, if this is a program that would be of interest to you. Finally, our MBA program, which many of you may already know a little bit about. It is a full-time program only. Our part-time has been suspended currently. It is designed to give students the ability to tailor your studies to meet your career goals and needs. So it has been redesigned in recent years, and it offers quite a bit of flexibility. We have a 1-year, 48 credit option, which is great if you simply are looking to get your MBA and stay, for example, within the same organization. We also have a 54 credit option, which can be completed in either 16 or 20 months. As you can see, the difference in terms of experiential learning opportunities is really in doing this internship. It can also be a practicum. If you do the 20-month option, or if you opt for the 20-month option, you can also see that there are a couple of extra semesters. So you would have the option of doing an exchange semester as well. Another way in which our MBA tailors your studies to meet your specific career goals and interest is by offering 5 flexible specializations. Students can choose from global strategy and leadership, marketing, entrepreneurship, finance, business analytics. In order to complete a specialization, you just need to take 5 of your 8 elective courses, so 15 credits from one chosen area. If a more general MBA is more of interest to you, you can absolutely take a variety of courses from across all of those specializations. For our MBA, the experiential learning opportunities that our McGill students enjoy include a 10-day international study trip where all of our students participate in this trip and they all travel together. There can be exchanges with partner schools, as I mentioned, if you are selecting the 20-month program. Internships for those students who select the 16 or 20-month program, and a practicum, again, for the 16 and 20 months for where a student would complete a specialized project under the guidance of a faculty member. Okay, so as my time draws to a close, I'm very conscious of the time here. I wanted to share some of our statistics with you regarding employment. So this is obviously a big part of your goal and how you are choosing your programs. I know that many of you, based on that first poll from Sergey, are really in the initial stages of preparing for your GMAT, so perhaps just in the initial information gathering stages for an MBA or a Master of Management program as well. So these are some of the statistics that I'd like for you to consider. We're very proud of them, of course. The MMA has 100% placement within 6 months of graduation. Our MMF boasts 93% within 6 months of graduation, and our MBA 91% within 3 months of graduation. Of course, you don't have at this alone. Our career services group is heavily involved with you. You will all have a career advisor from day one. They offer you many workshops and different skills honing kind of workshops. So to work on your CV, your presentation skills, your mock interviews, and those advisors will listen to you and really get to know you. Our cohorts are quite small in all 4 of these programs. None of them are more than 85 students, and that allows for our career services really to focus on what each of you have for your career goals. For up-to-date tuition information, as I mentioned, I did notice that a lot of you are really in the beginning stages. If you're looking to only apply for 2023, that's fine. Please visit our website in August of 2022, when we will update that information. If you are looking to apply for the fall of 2022, the information is already available for you, and you can visit at any time. Some deadlines are coming up, so please be mindful of that. As Sergey said, don't wait till the very end, certainly to be looking at those major details. On a quick note, just some scholarships. All of our applicants are considered for entrance scholarships. No additional application is required for the vast majority of them, though I do recommend that if you are looking at doing your MBA or a Master of Management, that you do also take a look at different organizations around you as well. You never know, some community organizations offer different scholarships, and banks offer different scholarships, and if you're currently working, maybe your employer even offers some of those scholarships. So it's a good thing to inform yourself about before making your applications or starting those applications. If you have questions for me regarding anything I've presented today, or if you are just starting out, as I mentioned, and want to have a quick discussion with a recruiter, please do reach out to me. My email address is here on the left. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The conversation certainly doesn't need to end today. I thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'll stop by sharing now, but if you need me to share my email address, I will do so in the chat.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. Yes, that might be helpful if you can share your email address in the chat and perhaps a link to connect with the McGill representatives and get a little bit more information. I'm also going to do that as well. I'm going to share my contact information now in the chat, and I will also post a link where you can see the demos of our classes and the access to the free practice test and so on. Now, most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to mention something to you is that doing an MBA or doing a master's degree is a transformational experience. I have my own MBA. For me, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's certainly in my career, it was the best decision I've ever made. You know, meeting my wife is a better decision, but that's out of a different league, right? And having children and all these other things. But career-wise, this is probably going to be the best decision you ever made. And I can also speak on behalf of my colleague Tristan, who's actually teaching a lot of our live classes. Tatiana might know him. He's actually graduated from McGill, and he used to teach for us. And then we did a lot of these seminars. At that time, it was in person. And he heard to this presentation about the McGill program from Tatiana's colleague. And he's just, this looks so amazing. I'm going to move to Montreal. I'm going to take this program. And he did. He actually, I mean, obviously he did really well. He got 760 on the GMAT. He's teaching the GMAT for us. He still teaches the GMAT for us, but he did his MBA. He does a lot of other really cool work right now. And he told me it was the best decision he ever made, not only because he met his wife during the program and they just got married a few months ago, but it was really about taking his career to the next level. So if you're sitting on a sideline, if you're worrying about where the economy is going, well, let me tell you, the world is not going to end. The economy is going to go back on track. And when the tide comes out, we're going to find out who was swimming naked, right? So when the tide comes out and when the job market returns to normalcy, now everybody's quitting the jobs. You know, in the past, everybody was worrying about the jobs. When things get back to normal, you're going to have to look at this and think really hard about how did you invest the time during this pandemic? Did you invest this time in watching the bad news on the TV, or did you invest this time in developing yourself? And I was just reading an article this morning about Warren Buffett again, and I'm sure you know who Warren Buffett is. At some point, he famously said, apparently multiple times, is the best decision you can do or the best investment you can make is an investment in yourself. And that comes from the world's greatest investor. So think about this: is where do you really want to invest? Because as long as you invest in your own skills, when things get back to normal and when the companies begin hiring again and when the job market becomes competitive again, what kinds of skills are you going to have? And everything leads to the next step. Today's seminar now leads you to having a really good plan on the GMAT and succeeding on the GMAT, getting a score of 700. And again, if you want to join us, we would love to help you. We really care a lot. We do all of this work, and that's why we get to do a lot of these seminars together, because a lot of our clients will then go to very prestigious programs such as Desert Health. The next step is do your MBA. This is going to be a transformational experience. And then the next step is participate in on-campus recruitment, get an amazing job, get promoted, and do other things as well. So everything leads to the next step, right? So everything, you really have to think about what's my outcome and how do I get there? What are the steps that I can take in order to get to my goals? And usually the fastest ways to get to the step is to get plugged in some sort of a system. When I was a fairly new immigrant to Canada, I wanted to get a really good job. So what was the step for me? Well, I didn't really know a lot of people, but I said, if I do an MBA program, I'm going to be able to participate in recruitment. I'm going to be able to get a good job. And I can tell you, I had a corporate job. Now I'm a GMAT instructor. I do a lot of this work. I love it. But I've done my MBA 17 years ago. So now I'm retired from my corporate job. I can afford doing this. And when I got my corporate job, I was immediately making 3 times more money than I was making before. And I had a really amazing job that I could only dream of without an MBA. So think about this and think about the system that's going to help you get there. And the McGill MBA program is certainly the program that's very well designed to help you get there. It's been around for many, many years. So that's my sincere wish to you and thanks for your kind comment, Jonathan, is for you to take the necessary step to get your career to the next level. Now, if you have any questions, and please let us know in the Q&A box or in the chat box. But in terms of the next steps, what I've learned from a guy named Tony Robbins, and some of you may have heard about this, is that if you come to an event, if you learn about some new opportunity, and you're really excited, what usually happens is by the next day, you get a little less excited. And by the following day, you get even less excited. And then you come a year later and say, well, now in 2023, there's going to be my New Year's resolution. The only problem is for most people, it's already been their New Year's resolution for the past 5 years. So the best thing that you can do is take an immediate step. Before you go back to work, take an immediate step to do something. And by do something, I mean, reach out to Tatiana, set up that consultation. Reach out to me, set up that consultation. Go and sign up for that practice test. Don't sign up for a real test yet. You're not ready yet. But sign up for the practice test, or sign up for our course. Take the step that's going to commit you to this journey, because there's so many things where you can go right now, so many distractions. But if you know what's important, once you start taking these steps, then you know you're going to get to the final result. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Tatiana, before we close?
No, I think that really acquiring the information for any program that you're looking at, taking that first step, as you mentioned, getting prepared and getting all of your ducks in a row, if you will, getting all those pieces together well in advance, so that when you do submit an application, you are comfortable with the strength of that application. To me, that's key. Knowing when the deadlines is also really important. Right now, we are really in the thick of our admissions period for the fall of 2022. And it's amazing to me how many students are writing saying, they didn't realize that they needed the GMAT or that they had to complete essay questions. Really, this is a super important time for you to be getting all that information together so that you can take the time and really put your best foot forward and submit the strongest application that you can. As you mentioned, programs are competitive. You want to make sure that you stand out in each component of those applications. So my recommendation is really just be prepared.
Perfect. Thank you, Tatiana. And that's really, I guess, the best advice that we can give everyone. Be prepared and make sure that to get prepared, you give yourself time and you have a really good plan to get prepared. It really does require a plan. If I want to run a marathon tomorrow, I love the analogy, so I'm going to use another analogy from a sport. If I want to go and run a marathon tomorrow, it's not going to happen. No way. I need to get ready. And I know it takes about 6 months. So if I want to do it in 3 weeks, it's not going to happen. So make sure that you have a plan. And if you don't know what the plan is, that's okay. just reach out and we're going to help you with a plan. So somebody has a question, I think, for you, Tatiana. Would you like to take it?
Sure. So I do see it. The question is regarding scholarships. So McGill does have close to $2 million in scholarship awards each year. So we're very pleased to be able to offer those scholarships. And as I said in the presentation, that there are no additional applications that are required for those scholarships. So each applicant is considered. The average that we do hand out is anywhere from 5,000 Canadian dollars to about half the tuition. So a full scholarship would be quite rare, but it is a possibility, though I would bank more on a half tuition as being the top mark of what the award would be. Thanks for the question.
Perfect. Thank you, Tatiana. And a lot of I could tell you from my own experience, very few people have enough money in the bank to pay for an MBA. When I wanted to do my MBA program, I had $3,000 in the bank. And by the time I graduated, I was almost $100,000 in debt. And that was in early 2000. So at that time, $100,000 can buy you a couple houses in Barrie. Now it can not even buy you a garage, right? So this is an investment, and there are all kinds of ways to fund this investment. And when you look at this, when you look at, let's say, the price of a stock market for Tesla, well, why is it $1,000? It's not because Tesla is so profitable that it actually is justified for Tesla to be $1,000. It's because people believe that in the future, Tesla will become a lot more profitable. So in the future, there will be enough cash flow from the company to justify these very high valuations for the stock. And that's something you're going to learn in the MBA program, by the way, if you're not yet comfortable with what I've just said. And that's the same thing with your own education. So imagine you are maybe 25 or 30 right now, and you're thinking of doing an MBA. Well, you're going to have about 20, perhaps 25, 30, 35 years of earnings. So some of the people who maybe just have a bachelor's degree, they're going to be stuck at about, $50,000, $60,000. And that will be slowly growing at 2% with the inflation being 7% for the rest of their working life. Or somebody else who's going to, let's say, do an MBA, make an investment, then they're going to make a lot more. So that future income is going to justify the MBA. And if you look at the return on investment of the MBA, and I would encourage you to do the research. There are lots of organizations that do this. One of them is QS. By the way, there's a QS event coming up actually next week. So if you guys are not registered, then please do. We'll send you a link. But one of the things that QS do is it actually evaluates the value of an MBA based on future earnings. And what they realize is over the next 20 years in your career, so as soon as you graduate and you at 20 years, so over the course of 20 years, the average return on investment for an MBA is somewhere around $3 million. So would an investment of $40,000 or even $80,000 be a good investment to justify a return of $3 million? Well, I'll let you make that decision. And for some of the schools, some of the top schools like McGill, it might be even higher.
So I did share with you on that same note some of the employment statistics. So it gives you the base salary range as well as the mean salary for many of our past graduates. So that's information that we do share on our site. I can see that I do have another question still around funding. So how do fully funded students achieve goal and partial scholarships? Sorry, self-funded students. So there are a variety of different funding opportunities. So if you go under our tuition and financial aid, it does break down our fees rather well, not just the tuition fees, but what your living expenses might be in Montreal. It's a pretty affordable city to live in. It has a high quality of life, low cost of living, which is always desirable. But there's also a Prodigy Finance that can help with some of the funding opportunities. So I can certainly share that with you in our chat as well. These are questions that are wonderful questions to have. And again, if you need a little bit more information, feel free to send me an email and I'm happy to help with that.
And I can say from my side as well to add that every school has a financial aid office. And then I'm sure this is the case for McGill as well. So at some point, you can speak with a financial aid office, and there are people whose job is to help you figure out the funding for the program. There are lots of loans available. They're bank loans, they're private loans, and they're generally pretty affordable in terms of the interest rates. So don't let the funding stop you. In fact, the hardest part about the business school is getting in, to be honest. Once you get in, you're going to figure out the rest of the things. But the application process is so competitive that most of the schools, even the schools, like if you look at some of the schools south of the border in the United States, some of the schools, just the tuition alone is something around $200,000. And that's in US dollars. So that's about 30% more than the Canadian dollar. And yet, all of the schools have this policy that nobody should really not do a good degree, an MBA, because of the funding. So the funding, some sort of funding, grants, scholarships, loans are going to be available if you have what it takes. Because the schools prepare future leaders and the world needs future leaders. So future leaders are not necessarily people who are exceptionally rich right now. And that's why there's going to be a way for you to figure this out. But focus on, certainly connect with the school and talk about the options, but focus on preparing the best possible application. Because if your application is really good, you have a much better chance of getting a scholarship.
Yeah, and explain in those questions that there are usually essay questions. For us, there are. Really, that's your opportunity to stand out and to make it understood why you're looking at an MBA, why now, and why at McGill do you feel it would be the best choice for your career goals. If you can give the admissions committee the opportunity to get to know you through those three questions, then that's, to me, probably my best advice is to spend some time not only on your scores, but also on those essay questions, just to define yourself a little bit more from your competition, from your fellow applicants.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I don't see any more questions. So we're going to wrap up right now. Now, the recording of this seminar is going to be available afterwards. So if you'd like to review it, you certainly can do this. And if you would like to review your own personal situation, your own resume, your own study plan, your own circumstances, and really to make the best decision. This is an important decision. Doing an MBA is going to be one of the best decisions you can make, but just to be honest, this is going to be one of the hardest decisions you're going to make because there's so many moving pieces. When am I going to start my program? What program will I take? Do I need to move to a new city? Where do I live? What friends am I going to have? And what job am I going to have? So a lot of the unknowns are going to potentially stop you from doing this because it could be overwhelming. But just do know that there are a lot of people who went through this process. And even though we think we're very, very unique, there are probably people who are very similar to us who've done that before. So just reach out to myself, reach out to Tatiana. Let's talk about your own personal circumstances. And then you're going to have to go and make some really important decisions to take your career to the next level. So thanks so much again. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining. Thanks so much, Tatiana, for joining us today. It was amazing seeing you again at this seminar. I look forward to doing the next seminar together.
Same. Thank you so much for having us, for having McGill as a guest. And I wish everybody the best of luck with their decision in either the Master of Management or the MBA.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll stop the presentation right now. We will stop the recording. If you have any final questions, then I'm going to just stick around for another minute just in case another question pops up. But afterwards, we're always available. So thanks so much for joining again.